Hello, ACU family. This is Ray Fernandez from the Poconos. Talking about the week 6 discussion question 1. Um, I'm just going to read it right off the computer. God is not mentioned in the book of Esther, but where can his actions be seen? List at least 2 references from the book as support. Um, I'm not sure if they mean the book of Esther or the book A Old Testament Survey. But I'm gonna go with the Bible just to play safe. Well, it's always safe to play with to advocate for the Bible. Um, as I read the Book of Esther, and just quickly, for some reason, these um, kings or these kings of old, like Xerxes and all these other dudes, they love to be worshipped for some reason. As I was reading in the book of Esther, it says that Haman saw that Mordecai did not pay homage to the king. Uh, Apparently, that was a big thing back in the days. Men like to be worshipped. Anyway, and we also see that with the Roman emperors. But getting back to the question at hand, so there are two from the book of Esther. There are two uh, verses that explains that God was evident in the book of Esther. I just wanted to grab my Bible quick. The first evidence I see is in Esther chapter 4, verses 13 through 14. It says, "And Mordecai told them to answer Esther, 'Do not think in your heart that you will escape in the king's palace any more than all the other Jews. For if you remain completely silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise from the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?'" Yeah, this reminds me so much about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stories that God, even if we do not want to do God's will, even if we are afraid, God's purposes will continue. God will rise up someone else to fulfill His purposes. However, just like Mordecai said, um, he would rather use those he's called to save many. And right there we see God again. God's purposes will go on with or without us. Sometimes, as humans, we think that God needs us, and God really doesn't need us. He's God all by himself, but He chooses us to fulfill His purposes, even behind the curtains of life. And then the second scripture, and this is the one that was mentioned in the book of all the Old Testament survey. Um, it says, chapter 6, verse 13, it says, "When Haman told his wife Zeresh and all his friends everything that had happened to him, his wise men and his wife Zeresh said to him, 'If Mordecai, before whom you have begun to fall, is of Jewish descent, you will not prevail against him, but will surely fall before him.'" Again, we see the reputation that the people of God had um, in the area. They knew, the nations knew that there was a God that fought for them. The nations knew there was a God who defended them. And the nations knew that although the Jews were in captivity, God's favor and God's blessing was upon them. Again, this reminds me also that God wanted to show not only the Jews but to us that He's everywhere. And I know for them, the Jews, the temple was a big thing, and Jerusalem was a big thing, which they are big things. But God's presence cannot be contained in a house built by human hands or to a city. But He is a God of all. He is Lord of all. He wants to be Lord of the whole, of all nations. So here we see that God, even these pagan people knew the awesomeness of God and how He protects and fights for His people. And we see here in the book of Esther how the wicked scheme of men would not prevail or overcome God's provision and God's plans. Book of Esther is it's a good book, and again, it's impacted in my life because sometimes we always think as Christians this is a coincidence, that's a coincidence, but for us who love the Lord, for us who are serving the Lord, there are no coincidences. God is moving, God is at work, and like the song says, and I think I've said this before, even when we don't see it, He is working. God bless you guys.